For if one is remembered by a friend, one is never truly gone.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Legacy of Star Wars, brought to you by Fandom Empire. I'm your host tonight, Randy, and my co-host for this evening is the one and only Tommy B. Tommy, how are we doing tonight?
Hey, man, I'm hanging in there. I legit just noticed when the camera came up that I got my BB-8 out there in the corner.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, man.
My office is a bit changed up from what it used to be, so things are a bit different. I got this ugly looking light in the corner I see, but I'm gonna make do for tonight.
It's all good, but I appreciate you for coming on. Obviously, if for those who don't know, a little over a week ago, Sean had a heart attack, and he's behind the scenes currently. Hopefully, per him, next week. He should be back, especially since the Acolyte's getting ready to start. So we'll definitely have our instant reaction to the first episodes next week. And everybody, obviously, please keep sending your positivity and your thoughts and prayers and things like that for Sean, because obviously he's got a long road ahead of just recovery in general, and everything really counts and matters. So let's start with a little bit of housekeeping, so to speak. I'd definitely like to thank the channel sponsors for everything they've done. What they do helps keeps the lights on. So we're definitely very grateful for that during this time. Also like to thank all our fans, all our patrons for being loyal and sticking with us. If you ever want to help us out in any way, shape, or form, please feel free to go to patreon.com/fandomempire. There are many different tiers. Any little bit helps. We are definitely grateful for that. And definitely do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share so that we can get past YouTube's crazy, insane algorithm that makes it extremely difficult for anybody to really get out there unless you know exactly what to say or do. Tonight, we just have a few things to go over. Tommy's here with me, so we can go over Season 3 of The Bad Batch and kind of give our thoughts on the series as a whole. And obviously, I believe Tommy does have a game of the week, so we'll go over that with him. And lastly, the Acolyte is upon us. We are literally a week away. So Tommy and I are going to give our thoughts and expectations, especially with the glowing reviews that have been coming out online from a lot of sources. So this is kind of an exciting time as we're getting into that sweet spot for Star Wars. So Tommy, what in terms of Season 3 as a whole, what were your thoughts on The Bad Batch?
My thoughts were that they took a chance. They really decided to set themselves up for either sink or swim, I think, when at the end of Season 2, they killed off Tech. And I feel like they hinted a few times throughout Season 3, are we going to bring him back? Are we not going to bring him back? And of course, spoiler alert for those who have not seen all of Season 3, they don't. Up to the very last minute, they make it look like they throw these little teeny tiny hints like crumbs. Are we bringing them back? And then they don't. So that was a very interesting choice. But overall, I feel like they did a very good job with the Season 3 and the series as a whole. If you go back and look at our content from several years ago, 4 years ago, I guess 5 years ago, when Bad Batch was first announced, and we're talking right after the conclusion of that last season of the Clone Wars. It was the last season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm one of the people who went down on record saying this is the series that no one asked for. What are they doing? And within the heat up to the show, the trailers and such, I started changing my gear, my wind. By the drop of the first few episodes, I was hooked, and I've remained hooked throughout the life of the series, and I really, really appreciated it. But I think I've spoken a little bit over what you initially asked me here, so I'm going to pass the torch to you.
It's all good, my friend. So yeah, season 3. You're right. They did kind of go for it, didn't they? They tried to give us something a little bit different, which isn't a bad thing. Some things kind of stuck, some things missed. The cameos they had, they weren't drawn out, which was fine. Having Palpatine come in and talk about Project Necromancer was fine. Having Fennec Shand in there to help bring back Asajj Ventress was decent. I was a little disappointed in how they used Ventress, but I understood her role as kind of, that intro to the Force for Omega. But overall, I liked the character development throughout the season. I liked how she was just through her alone, she was able to get the group back together since Crosshair had abandoned them for the first couple seasons. And I think ultimately, and I'm sure you agree with this, I don't know about you, how happy you were, but I was elated when I watched Hemlock die, because that dude was an asshole. And that's the good sign. That is the sign of a very good villain, when you want to see that dude get what's coming to him. So they did kudos to them for taking a guy and just making him so unlikable that you just can't wait to see what happens to the man.
Yeah, I agree. I believe they did a good job really fleshing out the ability to not like him, I guess. There were a few parts of the season that I was lukewarm on. It was not perfect. Don't ask me when we've had a perfect media, though, because I'm going to draw a blank on that.
Most of us would.
But more of it was enjoyable than not. I think that's fair to say. I feel like with Crosshair, they did a pretty good job doing his redemption arc up. I feel like, but just the same on the other end, that the ending of the show,
Mm-hmm.
It felt kind of sudden.
Yeah, I felt like there was definitely more to go. Also, I kind of had that element of someone's going to die. Like, I felt like someone needed, not all of them survived, like someone giving themselves, sacrificing themselves for the group. And there were moments where I was like, this is it. This is that moment. And it didn't happen. And I'm just kind of like, okay, fair enough. I was not expecting them to go the route of flash forwarding maybe 10 years, would you say? Because obviously by the very end, showing Omega as a grown woman joining the rebellion. So
I think somewhere they've revealed how many years that is.
probably.
But
I was just kind of more in shock of it than anything else, because I was like, oh, this is where we're going. But in turn, what it does is it gives the potential for more content on Omega and her, her journey through the rebellion, which I don't know. We'll see where they go with that. And maybe it's just done, and I'm not going to be upset about that. I think 3 seasons was good for this, just because of the pacing they set from the word go. I would have preferred more seasons of Rebels than we got, because I felt like there was a lot more story there for them. But for the Bad Batch, given what we got in season 7 of Clone Wars leading into this, I think 3 seasons was definitely the right amount of seasons for this.
a take that was shared with me before about Omega's ending is that she's too big to just sit in the background, to just write her off going
Yeah.
into the rebellion. She's too smart. Um, and I can appreciate that opinion. I can. Because at different times, the rebellion was a skeleton.
Very
And
true.
shining in that would not be very difficult. I don't believe they've ever shown the rebellion as skinny as we see, let's say, the resistance at its worst. But, you know, Omega just drifting into the background as a rebel pilot can be a little problematic. So maybe that's a sign that we will see her in future media in some way.
Well, given that we're
Killing
going to get,
another.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, as for what you said about killing a character off, the very last scene that we see Wrecker in, it looks like he's killed. Or
I was going to
you
be
really can't
crushed
see,
if
and
he
then he
died.
disappears.
Yeah, yeah, I thought for sure,
I had to
just
go
because
back and rewatch the scene. Like, so did he just die?
he was
Because
so beat up, and I was just like, no, don't kill this guy. He's like that. He's like that the big old teddy bear who just can wreck anything. Don't kill that guy.
and like they make it look like he dies, but then they don't like pay any attention to him or show him die. They
Yeah,
just like, oh, he's beat up and he does this, and of course they had the lead up for oh man, I just had his name. Crosshair. Crosshair. They had the chance right there. More than once, I think, just to write him off just like that. But they didn't. So it was very deliberate what they did.
I agree. It's even though I felt like this would have been the good time to kind of have a very fond farewell to some of these characters and just going out in a blaze of glory. Uh, I understand why they did what they did. It gave Omega father figures to grow up with and give her that sense of justice and purpose. And now we see her going off to fight in the rebellion. And I would assume that since we're going to get more of a Sage Ventress in media, whether it be book or comics, I pretty much would almost guarantee we're going to see stuff like that with Omega as well, where maybe they even team up. So it's going to be interesting to see how that character grows outside of the Bad Batch. Um, but we had our litany of characters that definitely would say kind of shine brightest, but we did have some sacrifices with Nala Se and obviously watching Rampart, pretty much get hoisted by his own petard was fun because it's like, oh yeah, you killed her and there's the grenade, enjoy. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they go next. I think the series as a whole served its purpose. Um, Obviously, as we know, the Empire phased out all the clones. So I guess is this? Do you think this is the last we really will see of any clones? Because I mean, we know we had Rex and Rebels, but I mean, beyond that, who do you and Boba for that matter? But beyond that, I don't think there would be any other clones left.
I was disappointed. This is one of the things they really didn't address any further, that we didn't see Cody again, even though they went out of their way to give him that spotlight in that one episode with Crosshair. I don't think Cody has the sway to give him his own animation. Unless they do it in like that style of the shorts that they've done with Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire. But what are you going to do? Tales of the Clones? I feel like they're just going to say, just go watch Bad Batch at that point.
If you think about it, it's not out of the realm of possibility, just because there could be specific clones, like you said, Cody. You could have like what happened with Wolf, Rex, and Gregor landing on that planet and surviving. Like there could be stories there for specific clones. Maybe that's another way the way they address anything that could happen with Omega. I mean, the series itself, the Tales of series, has been phenomenal so far. So,
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't put it past them, because you can do the Rebellion. You can, instead of just Tales of the Empire, you can do Tales of the Sith itself. And so it's like, because they've already done the Jedi, and you've done the Empire, so Rebellion and the Sith makes sense. The clones make sense. Bounty hunters make sense, because there's so many bounty hunters out there in the galaxy. You could actually go into kind of Din Djarin's backstory a little bit about what happened with his planet. I mean,
do like 2 episodes, 2 of them mini episodes, and like a half-hour content for each bounty hunter. That'd be something. Maybe even just 4 episodes of 2 bounty hunters, whatever. Let's be for real, though. If they do something like that, they're going to do Boba Fett.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. So
maybe just Jango Fett and Boba Fett. I don't know.
I mean, you could. There's a lot about Jango we don't know. So Bad Batch as a whole, what do you feel like was missing from it? What were some of the things that you kind of wished you got to see in the entire series with Bad Batch? Obviously, we had a bunch of different cameos. We had a lot of good action pieces. But there's always something there that you could feel like there could be more of. What do you feel like was lacking for Bad Batch for you?
This may have been intentional as part of their transition from soldiers of the Republic. I don't, and someone might disagree with this, but I don't feel like we saw enough of their humanizing, getting out of that clone mold and into just being people.
I can see
I feel
that.
like they kept to the clone mold, the army role a little more than we might think appropriate. Granted, the show takes place, I think, over at least a few years. I'm not certain how long exactly, but it's more than just a few months. It's
Yeah.
only just it's more than just a few months for the time Omega spent in prison.
Oh, for sure. We saw her grow up. They kind of shot her up just a little bit
They did.
between
They did.
seasons. So I would assume
But
probably
I
full-blown
feel like
teen.
they kept them in they didn't civilianize them enough. They could have done a bit more. Now, and I understand their condition. I understand they're born and bred and raised this way. But they're the oddball clones. If any of them could adapt, and they did to survive, it would be them.
I think out of all of them, the one who probably ended up being humanized the most was probably Hunter, because at first he wanted at the very first episode didn't really want anything to do with Omega, and by the end he's more of a father figure than anything to her. So you could see his transition through the seasons. Whereas for Omega, she always viewed them as her brothers from the word go, and she was never going to give up on them. And I think that was like the sticking point for Omega, is like her heart and how good she was, and how the fact that she was, driven by her bond to them. And obviously in the end, she's taking everything she's learned from them. And that's why she ended up flying off to fight, with the rebels. So but you're right. I feel like Wrecker and Crosshair probably could have shown a little bit more with them. I think Tech was on his way, but the problem was Tech died. So
Case in point with Hunter. In the fast forward bit, he's still dressed in the way he did when he was fighting. He's still wearing his bandana and everything, right?
I think it's the mentality of once a soldier, always a soldier, even though, yes, he's a civilian now. He's always going to have that, drilled into his head from his training and upbringing. And I believe that's kind of where that is. And of course, chances are what they were doing is like, do we really want to have to draw him in a different way? No? Okay, cool. We're just going to leave him this way, add some gray, and be done with it.
Yeah, quite possibly.
But yeah, I feel like I think thing is your take is pretty spot on though. We didn't see that type of growth out of the clones. We saw growth in the characters, but we didn't see the type of growth we would expect from them having to transition away from being part of the military. Obviously, as we saw throughout season 3, we got to see the different variations they had with the clones, where Hemlock was brainwashing a lot of them and turning them into assassins. We even got to see Rex and his crew, trying to liberate the clones themselves. I mean, we got to see so many different factions and sets of clones that it was actually really cool. Some of my favorite action sequences dealt with the clone assassins because of how skilled they were, and I just thought that was an overall good showing of just how trained they really were. We just never got to really see it during the Clone Wars because a lot of them just had guns, so there really wasn't the need for like hand-to-hand combat and things like that.
I can understand that.
But do I wish there would have been a little bit more? I think, like I said, I think the action was fine. I was happy with it, but I do feel like I wanted to see more some of the behind the scenes stuff, like with Emery and Nala Say. We got some of that, but I also wanted to see, more of the change, like, because we saw Emery kind of like slowly change, but then she kind of just all of a sudden instantaneously, boom, she was there. I wanted to see her kind of slowly start to change and start doing little things that kind of undermined everything more so than what we saw. Because I think that
And who is she?
Well, she's essentially Omega grown up, is what her character was. She was a clone as well.
But why?
See, and that's the thing. They didn't explain any of that. They just said, Emery's like, I'm you. And it's like, okay.
We have no idea why these two deviations from the Jango Fett DNA exist. It's very odd.
I mean, it is, but I think also what it does, in a sense, I'm not saying it's the real reason for it, but it's a way to help, procreate the species. You actually have a female Mandalorian essentially, so that you can help bring more Mandalorians into the world. I mean, that would be my only guess, but
they are the same DNA as their brothers.
Do you think that? Well, they don't have to sit there. Come on, man. Do you think they're just going to sit there and be like, "Yes, clones. Come on, let's go, big boy"? No, that'd be just wrong, dude. Now, outside,
what did you just say?
Yeah, but they don't have to sit there and do anything with the clones. You figured you got the entire Empire. I'm sure the occasional stormtrooper or Praetorian Guard or whatever would be just fine with it. Not going to sit there and go, clones? Are you nuts? That's probably how they got the Bad Batch in the first place. Just saying.
Emphasis on bad.
But I don't know. Series as a whole, I enjoyed it from the word go. Obviously, they got me hooked when they showed Caleb Doom. I was like, it's Kanan. And that's all I really needed. And then obviously as the series went on, I got more and more hooked. But yeah, as a whole, I'm gonna actually, I'm gonna grade it. I'm gonna give it like, 8.5 out of 10. I think as a whole, it told a really good story. There was a few little hiccups here and there, but I still say it's worth a watch. There's some good cameos in it. There's a lot of good action pieces. There's some comedic tones in there every so often. And yeah, what do you think, Tommy? Where would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 10?
If I had to throw it on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably. When it's good, it's really good, but there are dry spells. There were a few episodes that kind of really dragged. I'm thinking back towards some season 2 stuff. Uh, the plot with Sid, it was okay for a little while, then it really dragged, and then I feel like there was no good payoff for it. It was just kind of, oh man. I'd give it like a 7 collectively as a whole. I still count it as time very well spent. I would do it again. I have done the show more than once. Not the newest season, but it'll be the whole thing will be rewatched again. So I'll go with 7 out of 10.
Well, I mean, it's above average. It's good. It gets a passing grade, which means, if you haven't watched it, sit down, take the time, watch it, enjoy it for what it is, and just kind of enjoy the ride with that. But with that said, so Tommy, have you given any real thought to your game of the week? I mean, obviously, I know you're kind of late to the party in the sense that we've had quite a few. And you may be treading on something we've done in the past, but you know what? We never got your perspective on it. So it's all right. So what did you end up coming up with anyway?
I could name a few games. One that I could guarantee that you folks have never heard of. So why don't I throw out 2?
Okay.
And one you've already covered before, and one I can just about guarantee you've never even heard of.
Well, let's hear it.
So one that y'all have heard of before, maybe you've even played, Randy, is Empire at War. And Empire at War is the real-time strategy of real-time strategy games as far as Star Wars is concerned. It came out in the early mid-2000s, and they ended up featuring a expansion pass for it, which was Forces of Corruption, where you played as crime syndicate, the Xana Consortium. But the base game, you had your pick between Empire and Rebellion, and later a really, really good fan mod had the Separatists and the Republic. And when I say really good, I mean they did a damn good job, voice acting and everything. And you, like I said, real-time strategy. The graphics for the time were very good. You had all kinds of ships available. We're not just talking TIE fighters and X-wings and such.
Right.
We're talking like up to super star destroyers.
Oh, wow.
If I remember correctly, you could actually bring in the Death Star in some way or form. Yeah, there were. You could bring in your heroes like Thrawn. You could bring in Mara Jade, Luke Skywalker, and that was both space side and land. So that game has gone down for me as one of my all-time favorite Star Wars games, and I really wish that I still had a computer that wasn't too new to run it. My MacBook, it after a certain point, Mac OS that just stopped supporting most of the good Star Wars games from back in the day, and I'd have to do all kinds of workarounds to maybe get a passable performance. So not something I've ever bothered with.
Yeah, that's always the bummer about some of these classics we grew up on and played a lot of, especially PC wise, where computers are so far advanced now that it's just like, oh, that? Nah, we're not playing you. Obviously, I didn't play the game. Unfortunately, RTSs really weren't my thing, and I should have played it because I feel like I missed out. I do feel like I missed out, and I kind of wish maybe one day Good Old Games will actually have a port that actually works on modern computers that I can actually download and play, because that would be a lot of fun. So what's this other game that I've never heard of before? I'm really curious. You definitely piqued my interest.
Okay, so I didn't pick this game up at like launch or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure I was in a game store. Maybe it was a GameStop. Maybe it was what we used to have down here in the States. You live in the States. What am I saying? Called Game Crazy. You remember Game Crazy?
Yes, I do. I mean, I've heard of it, but it's been a while since I've actually like seen.
They were attached to Hollywood Video.
Yes. We did have one here in Richmond.
Yeah. So this game was on the Nintendo DS and the PSP, PlayStation Portable, and it was Star Wars Lethal Alliance.
I had that game on my PSP.
Oh man! So you have heard of it, okay?
Yeah.
So Lethal Alliance, as you know, was something different. You know, it was this one-shot third-person shooter, and you played as this Twi'lek, who I'm looking at the page right now because I had to find out what was her name again. Rihanna Sarin. I wonder where they got that name from. And you know, you were more or less getting another telling of how does the rebellion get the Death Star plans. To date, how in all the different canons, like how many ways has the rebellion gotten the Death Star plans?
I mean, I can think of at least 4 or 5. It's crazy, but
it is.
But now we got,
So
we got the new canon though. We got Rogue One, so that pretty much is the definitive way they got the plans.
So she, of course, was a mercenary, and on one end, you're invading some Imperial forces or fighting Imperial forces, but you're also going up against if I remember correctly, an Imperial affiliated mercenary faction, or maybe it was just the boss. And that's like also the last boss of the game, and it's kind of how they wrap this whole mercenary but not army affiliated story together with those two going at it. And it ends up, she of course wins. The big feature is her droid, who that's accompanying her, which you get some interaction with between the PSP and the dual screens of the NDS. I thought it was rather unique. It was a one-shot game. They had no intention, to my knowledge, of making any kind of follow-up to it. It was just something that was a little different. What did you think of that game back in the day?
Playing it on my PSP, it was definitely different. I loved it because it was Star Wars, but I felt like the controls probably didn't transition to the PSP as well. So that's what it probably meant the DS, because I know the DS usually was far and away better than what Sony ended up Sony did with the PSP. But it was an interesting story. I thought it was definitely fun to play. But like you said, it was a one shot. And I guess when you think about what the story is. It kind of makes sense. It's a one shot, but still didn't lead. I still was curious more about the character and kind of what more you could do with the character. And but that's just unfortunately how it goes sometimes. You get these stories where you're just excited and you like the character, and then they're just like, I'm looking at you, Shadows of the
That's it.
Empire.
It's over.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm looking at you, Shadows of the Empire. There was a lot you could have done with Dash Rendar, and you didn't give us. All you gave us was that. Not that it's a bad thing. That's an
I think he
amazing
shows
game.
up in books later.
He
I
does,
think.
but it's just like I would have loved to have more adventures with him, via video games, because that would have been amazing. I mean, look at all the stuff we got with Kyle Katarn, man. That was great.
Yeah, another waste of another waste to a good character who we never got translated over.
That's not saying that it can't happen. It just may not be.
It won't be the same.
No, it's not. It's definitely not going to be the same. It's
just the same as everyone says. Well, maybe we're going to get Mara Jade to come to the. I almost said the MCU. Ooh, that'd be so different. to the Disney canon this year, right? Maybe Mara Jade's going to be canon, and I just say it's not the same.
It's no different than going Revan is canon, but yet we don't have all we have really is a mention of the name of the ship at this point, and that's it. We have the ship, so we know he's out there. We know he's alive. He was alive at one point, but there's no information on him. Dave Filoni tried to bring him in Clone Wars, tried to bring him back into Clone Wars and have him have an interaction with Maul. But that's only in cinematics. That's a deleted scene stuff.
With Revan and other characters like him, I think it's easier to bring them back in their, not word for word, right? But closer to their original image than what we have going into the era following the Galactic Civil War.
This is very true. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. I know at least we know we're going to get more Revan here at some point, since the KOTOR remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it, is still being made. So hopefully they do that. It's been
rumored on and off to no longer be in production, but I saw something today listing it as still in production.
Well, let's just hope they do Revan right, and the rest of the characters we love, no one love right, because that's usually half the battle. Well, do you have any more thoughts on Lethal Alliance or Empire at War?
I wish I could say that it's a game I would suggest for folks to pick up, but I don't know how you would legitimately pick it up these days for Lethal Alliance. Good luck finding a copy. Maybe you can, but Empire of War, it's still out there. You can get it on Steam. Maybe you could even find a physical copy floating around somewhere. I'm pretty sure I still have mine. I just don't have a machine that can play it. So
that is half the battle nowadays.
Even if you have a physical copy, who has a machine with a disk drive?
I still do. It's just mine.
You still do? Okay.
The problem is mine's old enough because I literally built it to play the Old Republic when it first launched. So I had to have the disk drive back then.
Okay. Yep. I bought a computer all the way back then. Did not last that long.
Well, that will do it for Game of the Week. Now let's go on to the Acolyte. We're a week away, Tommy, and I'm telling you, I haven't been this excited since having to wait for Ahsoka. That tells you, from what I've seen, what I've read, just how much I just can't wait for the series.
I must confess, I'm not as hyped, and it's not that I'm disappointed in it. I'm kind of going into this series with more of a moment by moment. I'm not following every post about every little detail. I did have an article shared with me recently. It was actually shared with me by Sean
Okay.
about how they're saying that they've taken some inspiration for, I think it's the lead from Kreia,
Right.
which
I saw that as well.
which is very interesting. Um, you know, Kreia, of course, was featured as the evil to good to evil uh, Force user in Knights of the Old Republic 2. And as I read over the synopsis for this show, I can see the parallels. And it leads me to wonder, so are we going to be seeing like a struggle with orientation throughout the show? You know, good versus bad, light versus dark? Or is it going to be more about facing your past exclusively?
Well, I think with for obviously for the one Jedi Master, he's obviously having to face his past and his shortcomings as a teacher, given the fact that the main character May it was his pupil. So that's going to be very interesting dynamic to see, especially if it's to see how strong of I guess like trying to think of the word, how strong of I guess I would say justice, but just how he's convicted to the Jedi and like how much of a Jedi is he really? Is he going to be that type that is going to follow orders no matter what? Is he the type that uh, is going to show the compassion that he should show her at times? I mean, I'm pretty much guaranteeing he's not surviving the season, but I'm curious about his motives and the type of character he is because this is a different type of era for Jedi that I don't think we've ever really seen before. And that's one of the things that has me excited. It's something different. It's not you know, as they talk about the dogmatic ways of the Jedi from, from the Republic standpoint. This is this is the High Order era, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see just how they were versus what we saw in the prequel trilogy, where they'd fallen so far because of their arrogance. I made a comment, I think couple shows ago, you know, to describe the Jedi of the prequel era is victory has defeated you. You've basically got so much power that you just sit around and delegate. You don't really do anything. And this show feels different. This show feels like we're going to see what the Jedi are supposed to be and the start of their downfall. And that's kind of what I'm hoping I see.
So that's what you want to get out of this. You want to see the beginning of the fall of the Jedi Order when they start making some early missteps before the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, that's what I feel like this is going to be, and that's kind of what I want to see. I want to see what it took for them to start faltering and start ignoring their ideals. Because when you think about it, think about with the prequel trilogy where Anakin is so into what the Jedi are supposed to be that he gets disillusioned so quickly because of A, Palpatine, but B, watching how the Jedi treat each other and how they act compared to what he always felt they should be. That was part of the downfall for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with that. I understand that.
So to see them at their peak when they're supposed to be up here talking about their ideals and to start seeing them just kind of slowly get chipped away at, that's going to make for some really interesting conflict. And especially when there's going to be multiple dark side forces influencing everything. And that is really going to be interesting, especially if we can continue to get multiple seasons out of this, because I feel like we're going to need multiple seasons to truly fully unpack everything that they're going to show us in season 1.
If I remember correctly, this show has already been announced to have a season 2 in the works. Does that sound right to you?
I think so. I mean, I thought it was pretty early, because I know some shows that we've gotten season 1s of already have already been greenlit for season 2. This could be one of them, but take it just a hot minute to look that up and make sure that that is correct.
The reviews that have been coming back, the early reviews, they tend to be glowing, positive. So it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. I know the preview, if I remember, is what we would call it. It was positive, which is better than what we've heard about some other stuff, in that original showing.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how it is nowadays. Unfortunately, but at least we're getting, I mean, it looks beautiful. The action pieces, just from the little previews we've gotten, look really crisp. Obviously with Carrie-Anne Moss and having a little callback to Trinity in that one scene, that was pretty cool. But yeah, I'm really curious to see who the Sith is when they finally reveal. I'm hoping they reveal it. Granted, they might not. You never know. Yeah, I'm still kind of in shock. It's only a week away. It feels like we've been talking about it already for longer than a couple of months, but it's here, and I'm excited.
I agree. It really snuck up on us. Once the news started dropping that, here's the date, here's some promo content. Time has flown by, and we've had some other content, sprinkled in here and there, like Tales of the Empire and Bad Batch, to really get us, not necessarily get us ready, but to hold us over Star Wars wise. So I think this is going to be something special, something that stands apart from all other content we've gotten recently. Have you read it or listened to any of the High Republic content before?
No, and I kind of bummed out about that. I actually have a couple books. I just haven't read them yet. But the only High Republic content I know is from Jedi. It's from Jedi Survivor. So,
Okay.
Which is not a bad thing. It's just it's not enough compared to, I know there's a lot out there to give me a broader picture of exactly who these Jedi are. So,
I don't own, other than the Switch, I don't own a current gen console. So I have not played Jedi Survivor. I've of course seen bits and pieces of the cinematics by now, and I just saw the other day the video of Seer fighting Vader, and if I understand correctly, she does not survive that, but she really jacked him up. So I found that to be an interesting thing to watch. I did not know that any High Republic stuff connected with that, though. I don't know how that works or the context, but that sounds cool.
Yeah, since you don't have like current gen console, and if you're not sure you ever will own one, I'm sure you can go out online and find videos that have all the cinematics.
Yeah,
so
they're out there. I've kind of held off the back of my head that I'll pick something up one day, but I'm at the point right now where it's like I'm too busy to even justify this. I don't have enough time to throw the money around to really get my money's worth out of buying one, if you know what I mean.
I completely understand. It is a quite the financial commitment and time sink if you're gonna really get into it. But you might want to consider it just for if and when the old Republic, not the newer, Knights of the Old Republic. I'll get it out there eventually. Knights of the Old Republic reboot comes out. I'm still holding out hope that it's coming out. So
Yeah,
definitely.
I get it. I get it.
I mean, think about it: top-notch voice acting and top-notch orchestra and graphics, and I mean that as long as they don't screw up the story, and we're good.
Mhm.
Don't make Revan look lame, damn it.
Yeah.
But well, you got any more thoughts on the Acolyte and your excitement level, or any things you kind of hope you hope to see for the series? The series.
Nothing that hasn't been commented on over and over. I hope to see the dots that connect this to the Phantom Menace era.
If all
We
they
may or may
do
not
is
see
trot
that.
Yoda out there and say, "Here's your connection," I'm gonna be pissed.
That's not enough for me. But
Yeah,
that's what they
exactly.
did with Asajj Ventress, more or less, isn't it? I mean, they brought her back in Bad Batch and said,
Yeah.
"Stay tuned for more."
Don't get me started on that. Again, I thought, like I said, I hated what they did with her. I get it. They didn't want to derail the show with her, but damn it, why? Then don't bring her back at all. But I get it. Yeah, I agree. We need to see them connect the dots. We need to see the little things that kind of be like, so they mentioned this. I remember them mentioning this in the Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones or something, and here it is, or here's a version of it, or something that at least alludes to it. So yes, have that little trail of breadcrumbs that gives us what we need to satiate our urges for more lore, because God only knows that's something we all love, is this the expansion of lore that we get from these shows. But well, if you have nothing else, I think we are about at that time. But Tommi, I definitely want to thank you for taking the time to come on out and spend a little time here talking Star Wars with me. It's been fun. You got any socials out there that anybody can find you at?
Yeah, my tag's right there for my name. I float around mostly just Facebook nowadays. A little bit of X. It's
hate
never
that
going to
name.
catch on. When they going back to Twitter?
I'm waiting because X is just no. X is pretty much what they're saying it's turning into, and that's exactly what it's turned into.
Otherwise I float around a platform here and there, but call me old-fashioned, I guess.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being old-fashioned. I'm usually not on Facebook like most people or anything like that, so I get it. Social media is a great tool when it's used properly, but God bless when people just are total asses about it. It just makes it hard to go on there.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for being here. Again, for everybody watching at home, whether it's live or tomorrow on YouTube or any other day on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Definitely don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can keep track of when we go live or post any new content. And with that, yeah, thank you for joining us tonight, and may the Force be with you all. What's this? Oh, I thought he was jumping on.
Now we wait.
I know, right? So I've got that hint of Sean. It's almost like those QR codes we see with WWE. It's like he just kind of popped up for a brief moment and then disappeared.
Wait. Oh, it's gone.
Pretty much. I guess while we wait, you got any plans there, Tommy? Other than going to bed right now?
I'm going straight to bed.
Like the force that bed is calling you?
Oh yes, oh yes. I say I wake up bright ass early.
I hear you. I don't think he realized we already wrapped.
Yeah, I don't think so.